Well, it's very common to interchange the terms teams and groups. In fact, I found myself doing it a few times during these lectures. But a group is not necessarily the same thing as a team. We can think of a team as a more mature or advanced group, meaning that they have gone beyond the initial stages of just simply forming, storming, and norming to really get into a high performance level of activity. And when does a group become a team? It says here leadership becomes a shared activity. So not one person is occupying all the leadership roles. People within the team all are taking some measure of responsibility for the team's well-being. Accountability shifts from strictly individual to both individual and collective. So I no longer think that I must answer only to myself, but I consider myself to be accountable to my group. I need to help others within my group to perform as well. The group develop its own purpose or mission. So beyond just the organizational mission that was placed on the group itself finds some core mission that they can work around. Problem solving becomes a way of life, meaning that they find themselves actively pursuing problem solving, figuring things out, critically thinking about things. And effectiveness is measured, listen to this, by the group's collective outcomes and products. Essentially, the best way to distinguish between a team and a group is that in a team, you have full commitment to the collection, to the group entity, rather than people just seeing themselves as individuals working together. They see themselves as one unit. And this is, of course, illustrated in these characteristics of effective team players. And effective team players, they are open to new ideas, different ways of working. They want to do things or want to do things better for the group, for the team. They share information, experience, and specialized knowledge. Of course, they will be more willing to share because there is a higher level of trust. They see themselves as being one unit. They seek opportunities for improvement. We mentioned that again about the new ideas. They develop working relationships with people from different functions because they think that they can learn from people in different functions. They look for win-win solutions and they build that trust and sustain the relationships that's necessary to have that common purpose, to have that common accountability. They join only those teams whose goals they highly value, right? So they want to be part of something that they believe in, and they are results oriented and reliable. They have to be reliable and result oriented because you have to hold them accountable for not only their work but the team's work. So you want people in teams, in order to be effective, to be reliable and also results oriented. You want them to be able to perform. And one interesting point at the end of this slide is that all of these characteristics are in fact what we call action oriented. It's about performance. It's about improving the state of being. So when you say somebody's a team player, it's not just that they're a people person, that they're nice, they kind of easy to get along with. They're in fact action oriented. Now returning to the distinction between groups and teams, of course, team players, therefore teams, they show commitment to each other. Again, they don't see themselves as just individual occupying a common space that are having to interact with each other. They see themselves as a part of that greater unit. So it's more about the unit than it is about the self. Collaborative, the trust level is high. There is going to be a great level of interaction, a great level of sharing between and among team players because they want to see the team do better rather than they just want to see their individual stats improve, if you will. And competence, the competence that's necessary to demonstrate that you can do what you said you can do, that we can hold you accountable for these results, and you're going to be able to give something to benefit the team through your ability. So you have to be competent. We don't want people on the team that have nothing to offer, but you have to also be willing to share with others so that you can not just make yourself better, but that you can make others better. And we want you to be committed to the whole. Don't try to be out there like a maverick, making yourself look good while the team's suffering. So those team players are committed, collaborative, and obviously competent. Well, oftentimes managers want to transform their groups into teams, and so they do what's called team building exercises. You probably have heard of them, you probably experienced them yourself. It's a catch-all term for a host of techniques aimed at improving the internal function of work groups. Team building workshops, they strive to increase cooperation, increase communication, collaboration, and reduce dysfunctional conflict. All of the things that you see that are characteristics of effective teams. Now, the question is, does this actually work? And the answer is, well, maybe. It really depends on how the exercise is, of course, structured, but most importantly, whether the exercise has been designed to be related to some type of goal or objective that the organization really wants to see accomplished. So if you just kind of go out there and put people, in the forest and kind of have them jumping off things and other people catching them, and there is no correlation between that and some objective that you would like to see realized, and if there's no way to really measure how much that objective is realized after the team exercise, then you're basically just kind of doing something for doing its sake. And so you have to be able to, one, measure something. You have to be able to clarify the relationship between the exercise and the desired outcome to really see or evaluate whether the exercise actually works. Yeah, people might feel better about it, but does it actually increase production or productivity, or does it help the organizational effectiveness? It's really up to how it's designed and how it's measured. But one thing that should be sincerely clear to you by now is that in order for a team to become a team, to advance from just simply a group, is that you must have a high level of trust. And trust is simply reciprocal faith that the intentions and behaviors of others will consider the implications for you. When you trust someone, you're basically assuming that they're not only looking out for themselves, that they're also looking out for you. And that, of course, is important in teams because of that mutual accountability. Okay? I am giving to you, I'm sharing with you, I am trusting that by giving you these responsibilities and by helping you, you're not just going to promote yourself, but that you're going to look after the team and by virtue look after me as well. So that's where that mutual accountability, shared responsibility, and leadership requires that level of trust. And there are essentially three forms of trust that we require from our team members. One is the contractual trust, and it says here the trust of character. And essentially, it means that you will do what you say that you will do. You're a stand-up person, that you can be held responsible and you will be accountable for your actions. Communication trust, that you will provide the information necessary, you will share information necessary for us as a team to be successful. You won't kind of be keeping or hiding things to try to enhance yourself. And then the third one is this trust of capability, meaning that I can trust you, that you have the ability, you have the competence to get things done. I can trust in your ability. So trust in yourself, trust in your character, trust in your disclosure, your communication, and also trust in your ability. I can put all of those things, I can trust in all of those things, have faith in you because of that, and therefore be willing to work with you in a team. There are different types of teams, and one of the types of teams that have become kind of in vogue or popular is this concept called a self-managed team. And it's a group of workers that are given administrative oversight for their task domains. And essentially, they are the ones, the team members are the ones that delegate activities, they plan, they schedule, they monitor their staff. They do everything that a leader would do. So self-managed teams are essentially without some type of formal administrative leader. They kind of lead and manage themselves. Now, it seems like that's probably a good idea because of the fact that many people now in organizations, especially knowledge type organizations, are themselves highly qualified, intelligent, self-disciplined, and therefore can do many of the tasks and can in fact occupy or play many of the roles that a de facto leader would. So why not have the team manage itself rather than have it being managed by some leadership or outside of the team? Well, as I mentioned before, self-managed teams are all the rage and are very popular. The fact is that their effectiveness is still rather questionable. Studies have found that they do have some positive effect on productivity. They in fact can increase that, and can also have a positive effect on a specific attitude relating to self-management, like your responsibility and things of that nature, control, because people feel like they're empowered, that they can control their own destiny. That it does help that in terms of increasing those types of attitudes. However, we have not seen any real significant effect on just general attitudes related to work, like job satisfaction, for example. So the fact that people are part of a self-managed team does not necessarily make them more satisfied with their job, and really no significant effect on absenteeism or turnover. So again, just by having somebody being in a self-managing, being able to kind of control and administer and manage their own team efforts does not necessarily mean that they will be more committed to the organization, or that they will in fact be less willing to leave, or even less willing to not show up. So those are some important results to take into consideration. So that again makes you or should make you aware that just because something is popular, just because something is being used, that it doesn't necessarily mean that it's expressly effective. Another form of team structure that is popular in contemporary society, contemporary organizations, the virtual team. It's a physically dispersed group that conducts its business through information communication technology. We all know what this means. People are in different parts of the world, different physical locations. They're all working together by using some type of technological communication platform. I've worked on papers, for example, with people that I have never seen before. We've just strictly communicated via email or sometimes via Skype. Those kinds of things are examples of virtual interaction. Virtual teams are more so these units that have been created for a specific purpose, that have all the traits perhaps of regular teams, but are doing their communication, their interaction over some type of technological platform. Well, what about virtual teams? Do they work? Well, the benefits are they can reduce the real estate costs. Of course, you don't have to have or house people, and you don't have to, in a specific location. The ability to leverage diverse knowledge, skills, and experience across geography. So you're not limited to just a pool of people that just happen to be in your geographical location. You can leverage, you can utilize the expertise of individuals in different parts of the world by using a virtual team platform. The ability to share knowledge of diverse markets, and it can also reduce work-life conflict. Many people have issues, and you in fact should have seen a video, I think, in chapter 6 that talked about having to balance the demands of life, your personal demands, taking care of your kids, doing everything at home, your family, making sure they're okay, and also work. The fact that you can work in your own space, in your own location, means that you may not have to go to spend time in some foreign country, spend time away from your kids and your family, and therefore you feel that there is a better balance between what you're being asked to do at work and the demands that are being placed upon you in your personal life. And so all of these things can help, but we must be careful that the virtual teams, because they do not have a lot of personal one-on-one interaction, the question is whether or not the high levels of trust, the high levels of mutual accountability and responsibility can actually be cultivated in this type of setting. The last thing that we're going to talk about in this chapter is the threats to effectiveness. So what can actually be severe obstacles to group and teamwork? And one of the obstacles that we most often refer to is this thing called groupthink. And it's defined here as a mode of thinking that people engage in when they are deeply involved in a cohesive in-group, when members striving for unanimity override their motivation to realistically appraise alternative courses of action. It's a very long definition. All it says here is that when groupthink occurs, it occurs because the members of a group are trying to emphasize, or they're prioritizing, unanimity, meaning that agreement and consensus across everyone, rather than trying to find the best solution to their problem. So when groupthink occurs, it's basically as a reaction to minimize any type of internal conflict. And ironically enough, groupthink is most often associated with groups that have high levels of cohesion, meaning those that have developed to the stage where they see themselves not as just individuals, but as a unit, which is why they don't want to create any type of conflict, because they don't want to break up the unit. They don't want to have any kind of fraction in the unit, and therefore they are willing to compromise on the the quality of their decision to ensure and these are some of the symptoms of groupthink. You have rationalization. Everybody's, rationalizing why we're doing certain things, even though, obviously it's something that we shouldn't be doing. Self-censorship, meaning that people don't say certain things, even though they're thinking about it, because they don't want to cause any kind of discord. They stereotype the view of the opposition. It's kind of us against them. They kind of create this, this little unit, this closed entity, and they kind of stereotype everybody else and say, what, they're trying to make they are against us, essentially. They have this illusion of unanimity. So everybody kind of thinks, oh, we always agree on everything. Well, no, you don't always agree, but nobody ever says anything against it because you don't want to actually, cause any bad blood, any conflict. You got peer pressure. Everybody's kind of like wanting everybody else to think the same way, and they're kind of guarding your mind as well. So you feel like, oh man, if I say anything here, everybody's going to be upset with me, and they're going to kick me out the group, and the group's going to break up, and we don't want that. And all of these are problems that lead to groupthink, that lead to this desire to be cohesive rather than to be or to create quality in terms of your group activity. Another problem, and this is something that you probably have faced in terms of your team exercises in school, is the social loafing. And it's a free rider problem where people, there's a tendency for people, for individual effort to decline as group size increases. So the more people in your group, the more likely you are going to see some members of the group practice social loafing, which is why when I create groups, I tend not to have large groups because it increases the propensity for individuals in the group to not essentially pull their weight. Well, why does it happen? Well, one reason is this equity of effort. You might say to yourself, you know what? Well, nobody else is doing anything, so why should I? And that's really one of the arguments that people use for social loafing. Another one is that whole personal accountability. Because there's so many people here, I'm kind of just lost in the crowd. I mean, I don't really have to do that much. I mean, it's just everybody else is going to kind of, pull their weight. And at the end of the day, it's one project. So, I mean, I don't really have any kind of individual accountability. Motivational loss due to the sharing of rewards. So, because, I'm putting all this effort in and, we're all going to get the same grade, but maybe I won't put as much effort in because, I'm not going to get especially rewarded for my action. So why should I? And coordination loss as more people perform the task. Essentially, kind of people could get left out the mix because we have this saying, too many cooks in the kitchen spoil the broth. You have people there that are maybe willing to do something, but they just can't because there's too many people around, and so they kind of just reduce their effort because they really aren't required to do as much. Well, of course, managers don't want ineffective teams. They don't want social loafing or groupthink. And some of the ways to overcome this is to have shared responsibilities, to have people being open and honest with each other, people participating in leadership, ensuring that nobody gets left behind so that you can build that level of trust and that level of competence and collaboration necessary for effective teams.